This is Freedom's First News.
It's 7:35 at Oklahoma's Talk Radio Freedom 96.9. You are listening to Freedom's First News. I'm your host, Jason Doyle. Thank you, as always, for joining us. And now joining us on the hotline straight from Washington, D.C. is Oklahoma's senior senator, U.S. Senator James Lankford. Good morning, Senator.
Hey, good morning to everybody.
So I haven't even checked the weather in D.C. How's things going out there? How does it look?
You know, the weather's pretty close to what it is back home, almost always, actually. Everybody thinks about Washington, D.C. being way in the northeast, but it's actually almost directly due east of Oklahoma, so about the same weather on it. But right now, the temperatures are high inside the building, but they're about normal outside.
Right. And so speaking of inside the building, we've heard some predictions going around that it looks like the government shutdown could end soon. So from your point of view, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we have had some breakthrough moments here in the last 48 hours. Really, Democrats, the struggle with negotiating for Democrats is their goal was the shutdown. Their goal, they kept saying it was health care, then it was climate change issues, then it was all these other things. But they never presented us a document and said, this is what we want. They would just talk about different things because the goal was the shutdown. So the challenge with that is, how do you restart if they're already accomplishing their goal to shut down the government? Well, it seemed we would never get an answer from on their deadline. Apparently, the deadline was the New York City mayoral elections. That now they're coming and saying, okay, elections are over. We won the elections. We showed our base that we were fighting Trump, and we energized our base for the elections. Now we're ready to be able to talk, which has been even more frustrating that for 37 days, this is all about getting Mondami elected in New York City. Great, they accomplished that. But I'm sure the SNAP recipients and the families with Head Start and all the people that haven't been paid for a month are excited they were just a pawn to be able to help them win the New York City mayoral race. But apparently that's what's happening. At this point, we've got 10 or 12 Democrats that are saying, yep, we're willing to come on board now. Let's reopen the government this weekend. So we've got another bill we're bringing today. We hope to be able to get the majority we need. Remember, we've had 55 votes. We need 60 to be able to move it. So we've had 3 Democrats with us the whole time, but they've been trying to be able to get 5 more to be able to join them. We believe that we have that at this point, but we've got to be able to test it with an actual vote. We'll see if May walks away.
And so that vote will happen a little bit later today?
That's our hope. It has not been scheduled because we're not going to schedule it until we know that we've actually got the votes on it. So they're doing the count and everything to be able to make sure everybody's on board. But if that vote happens today, the House would come back in session immediately. They would fly back. They're on a 24-hour standing ready. So they would come back. They would vote on it the next day. President Trump's already said he would sign whatever it takes to be able to reopen the government. So this is basically what's called a continuing resolution. It's the same thing we've been pushing for the last 37 days to say open the government. Since we've been sitting here for a month and not been able to open the government, we have negotiated 3 of the full-year funding bills, but those were basically ready before we ever started. So we'll add these 3 full-year funding bills, and then for the rest of it, we'll still do a continuing resolution, probably till January, and then have to get everything done between now and January so that Democrats don't put us right back into this spot again for State of the Union, because that's my fear is they feel like they, fired up their base, and I'm afraid they'll do it again at State of the Union in January and say, let's fire up the base again.
So I know that we had during the CR that's on the table now, we had a certain due date there. Does this mean we got to pass another
we changed that date. Yeah, the date on it was November 21st, so that's 2 weeks away. We're not going to do that date anymore. Remember, when we first started this, it was September. So November 21st date was to give us enough time to be able to negotiate all the remaining issues. We've not been able to get anyone to negotiate all the issues. They haven't wanted to be able to talk about these things. So we're going to try to push the date out to mid-January now and to say, let's take the next 8 weeks and get things negotiated, which is basically the same thing we were trying to do in September.
We're speaking with U.S. Senator James Lankford from Washington, D.C. on Freedom's First News, and talking a little bit about the shutdown. But after we get the government reopened, we said we've got 3 of the appropriations bills, 3 of the 12 kind of set, ready to go on the sideline. What kind of heavy lifting do we do to get the rest of the bills through?
Yeah, so we've got several bills dealing with national defense, dealing with our health issues, all that kind of stuff. Those are queued up and ready to go next. They've already been out of committee now since July. I mean, they've been ready to go. So at that point, if we can get this going, we can get the government reopened, we can finish negotiating those bills. That's like 87, 90, somewhere through there, percent of the government funding total. If we can get those things negotiating done, the target's had those done by mid-December or at the worst by early January, so that we're not bumping against this deadline again in mid-January.
So we know very well that you've tried to promote legislation which would prevent future shutdowns.
Yep.
We also had President Trump call for the end of the filibuster, and you actually defend the filibuster. And I kind of see it because I'm an old political guy. I like the process and things like that. I love the way our Congress is set up and things like that. I mean, I was one of those kids that watched Schoolhouse Rock, and so I kind of like that traditionalist type thing. And I was also an up-and-coming political reporter when they started chipping away, the Democrats years and years ago started chipping away at the filibuster. So
Right.
How do you feel about keeping it in play now?
No, I think we need to keep it. I know the president wants to be able to move faster, and I completely understand that from his perspective. Quite frankly, every president wants to get rid of the filibuster because it slows the process down. It takes longer to be able to talk things through. But it's this uniquely American thing where both sides have to sit down at the table and negotiate. It's the same thing happens in our churches, same thing happens in our neighborhoods, same thing happens at work. When you have a disagreement with somebody, you can't just ignore them. You got to sit down and figure it out. The Senate is the place in our American government where you can't just ignore the other side. You have to sit down and work it out. I have said to the president and the president's team, listen, I know what Joe Biden would have done if there was no filibuster rule. He was very clear about that. He would have packed the Supreme Court, adding more liberal members to it. He would have mandated abortion in every state. He would have ended right-to-work laws in every state. He would have added Washington, D.C. as a state to add 2 more Democrat senators. I mean, all these things, that's what he would have done. He was very clear with it, but he couldn't do any of those things because the filibuster rule existed. When Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the White House, they couldn't just do whatever they wanted on the far left. I understand we can't just do everything we want now as conservatives. I do have to sit down with the other side, but I think that's actually good long-term for the health of the country to have a place where we got to fight the issues out and to be able to get to a resolution on it and then keep moving. So it's easier not to have filibuster because you move as fast as you want, but I think it's better for the country long-term if we do have a place where adults have to sit down and talk.
So let's talk a little bit about possible support for your legislation to prevent future shutdowns. Have you seen more people come to your side since the shutdown started?
We've not been able to get a lot of motion on it right now because we're trying to do the shutdown itself. But yes, I've had more and more folks that have come to me and said it's time to be able to get this resolved. I had 57 votes for this last time we brought it up. 57. That is 3 away from this thing becoming law. So it was very close. If we'd have passed it last time, we literally wouldn't have had to shut down at all this time. So my goal is to say, have we learned enough yet? Let's get this resolved and get this stopped and try to get 57 people on board, or 60 people, not 57. So that's the work that I just have to continue to do to be able to build the momentum. Even common sense things in Washington take a very long time to be able to move.
Yes, it's a deliberative process on purpose. So, Senator Lankford, if we were able to get past this and all that kind of good stuff, what's one of the things you would like to work on and have Congress work on?
Yeah, I definitely want to be able to end government shutdowns forever, take that off the table. I want to change the way we do budget processing because this is not working for the country at all. And Congress is the only one that can change our own process. So I want to fix this long term. But there's lots of other things we've got to get done. We got to get the rest of the Farm Bill done. We got half of the Farm Bill done earlier this year. We got to get the rest of it done. We've got to deal with some of our trade issues to make sure we can stabilize our business community and trade and tariffs, and people have more predictability in the process. That's important for us long term. I've got a bunch of things I'm working on healthcare. The pharmacy benefit managers are really choking out our independent pharmacies, and they're hurting our consumers dramatically by jacking up prices. We've got to be able to fix that, and I've got several bills to be able to work on the healthcare issue on how we deal with pharmaceuticals and what that looks like. So, yeah, there's quite a bit out there